Hello, this is News from the Water and I'm Peter Underwood. CRT cheating saga rolls on. With Canal and River Trust tying itself into knots over its admission that it falsified its annual report, the confusion seems to have spread to the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. As Allan Richards discovered late last year, CRT Chair Allan Leighton wrote to the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, George Eustice, telling him that CRT was changing its annual report in respect of heritage data. He did not tell Eustice that CRT was also changing the annual report in respect of visitor satisfaction, and he certainly didn't tell Eustice that CRT was falsifying its approved annual report in order to hide two key performance indicators where achievement was down on the previous year. So, Defra was drawn into this falsification by being asked to comment on a draft letter, a way of legitimising CRT's actions, and rather than smell a rat, they fell for it. And Allan Richards says it now seems Defra are so embarrassed they've ordered CRT's Tom Deards to say the letter was never sent. And apparently Deards has obliged. Unfortunately, Defra forgot to alter the minutes recording what actually happened. And Allan has asked the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs for the documents concerned, asking for a copy of CRT's letter, explaining the adjusted figures, Defra's comments, the final letter and any other recorded information. And the department's in a bit of a quandary if it seeks to deny the letter ever existed, as the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of December 2020 record that Defra provided CRT with comments on the draft heritage data letter to the Secretary of State, and CRT subsequently issued this letter. That was on April the 20th, and Allan's Freedom of Information request 4 days later seems to have triggered a series of emails between Defra and CRT's Tom Deards, attempting to give the impression that the letter was not commented on or issued, which of course completely contradicts the minutes of that meeting held just a week before. Now, Allan has asked Defra to either provide the letters or an explanation as to why the emails between the 27th of April and the 11th of May contradict the minutes of the week before. Now, in next week's thrilling episode, we'll wait and see. Now, are boaters getting less and less for their money? Now, almost every year the summer brings complaints of broken and closed toilet blocks, unemptied bins, even disappearing water points. The basic, essential facilities for boaters seem to collapse under the strain of actually being used by boaters. Of course, like so much else, CRT can point to their contractors rather than shoulder any responsibility. Helen Wright, who lives on a narrowboat and cruises through the summer, was moved to write to Daniel Greenhouse, CRT's Northwest Regional Director, after her journey into Liverpool when she found this at Moss Bridge near Burscough. Now, this is the only CRT rubbish point left between Liverpool and the Anderton boat lift, a total of 49 miles on CRT waters, and she couldn't find any boaters' bins on the Bridgewater, making a total of 82 miles. Most liveaboard boaters tend to travel a few hours every few days, so that could mean weeks between bins. In fact, there was another rubbish facility at Burscough, but CRT had closed it completely. And Helen pointed out that on leaving Liverpool they were going to head for Marple on the Peak Forest, a journey of 72 miles, with 59 of them on CRT waters and with just that overflowing skip at Moss Bridge. So Helen contacted Daniel Greenhouse direct because, as she told him, she thought the situation was so serious that she didn't think the reporting it through other channels would achieve the required scrutiny. Mr. Greenhouse perhaps predictably passed the buck to one of his juniors, Liam Cooper, the customer support supervisor, who told Helen the skip had been missed by CRT's contractors, but CRT staff had cleared the excess rubbish and the skip had now been swapped for an empty one. He went on to claim that CRT had made a difficult decision to temporarily close the waste facility at Burscough because of a misuse, and it will remain out of use whilst CRT finds a way to ensure it's protected from further misuse. Shouldn't be too difficult, should it? But by this time the issue had escalated to one of the CRT council members representing boaters, and a degree of panic began to be seen in the responses. Liam even offered to use staff to collect household waste direct from boaters who contacted CRT, but then of course claimed the trust didn't have the funds to install new bins or add additional skips. As an alternative, he suggested using council recycling centres and even supermarket bins by the canal. Then came a most peculiar claim. Liam said,
"Having reviewed the services offered between Anderton to Liverpool and Liverpool to Marple, I can see the maximum distance between refuse points is approximately 27 miles and would take on average 2 days cruising time. This takes into consideration sites provided by the Bridgewater Canal Company. It is my understanding that all services listed on the Bridgewater Canal website are still in use."
So quite apart from the question of whether those 27 miles are simple distances or lock miles, Liam's sums assume travelling 13 miles a day every day, and that means something like a 6-hour day every day. So it seems CRT wants us galloping around the system, never pausing for a day or 4 days, or even 2 weeks, to enjoy any particular area, and generally behaving like hire boaters trying to complete a ring. It's also in some contrast to the picture painted by Matthew Simmons, CRT's Strategy and Engagement Manager (boating) in a Cosy Trust podcast.
What exactly does the trust do for boaters though? I'm sure there's so much more that many people probably aren't aware of that we're actually doing for boaters day in and day out.
Absolutely. Well, most of the work we do, and over 90% of the money that we spend, goes on the waterways, which directly is about making sure boaters can carry on using them. So all of those maintenance jobs, all those big and small repairs that need to happen, the day-to-day things about whether it's painting locks or cutting vegetation or picking litter up or making sure the waste points are there for people to use, maintaining water points, pump outs, Elsons, all the things you need if you're going to be boating, we keep those in order and keep supporting those.
Helen tells us she had a surprise phone call from Liam Cooper, who assured her that the North West team were doing their best to improve the bin situation in the area and look at other ways of improving things for boaters. But CRT is in fact under near constant criticism for the loss and lack of facilities in London and other busy areas, especially in view of the number of boats. So we asked the Trust, what's going on? Specifically, we asked how many operational facilities blocks CRT now has and how that compares with 10 years ago, and whether the services at the still open blocks have been reduced or removed. Unfortunately, CRT couldn't come up with any numbers in time for this bulletin, but they have promised something for next week. So that may be enlightening, or not. Other boaters are certainly unconvinced, and Pete Jaggers pointed out that CRT's contract for waste and its supervision is totally inadequate. He says,
It may be, as is often the case, someone thinks that by achieving a money saving, they've achieved a pat on the head. Wrong. The pennies they've declared as annual cost saving is more than eaten away by the cost of the labor to sort this out, labor that should be doing other things which also either get left or not done, snowballing the problem. Stupid, isn't it? All down to a lack of experience and relative professionalism up the management chain, all because someone tried doing it on the cheap. You pay cheap, you get cheap.
Winter wonderland? Now, a long list of the stoppages this summer, and there have been a lot, have been attributable to the canal infrastructure simply failing because it hasn't been properly inspected or maintained. The particular examples that stand out are the wooden floored locks in the north, where no fewer than 3 have broken, often with large voids beneath the floor, voids that were either not spotted by the inspectors or were ignored. So, this winter, most boaters will be hoping Canal and River Trust will steam ahead to clear all the crucial maintenance jobs. Indeed, the Trust claims that 48 motorways will benefit from 168 large-scale works to repair masonry, brickwork, fix leaks, update and install hydraulics and electrics, as well as replacing seals, stop plank grooves, lock ladders and lock gates. The Trust's workshops are building 123 lock leaves to be installed at 67 locks across the network, which sounds great, but in fact it's a smaller commitment than in the past. In 2017-18, for instance, there was nearly £27 million spent on dredging and repairs to bridges and embankments. This year, dredging isn't even mentioned. 4 years ago, they spent £17.4 million on replacing 180 lock gates, a third more than this year. And this year, the biggest jobs are maintenance work on the Anderton boat lift, new lock gates at the Bingley 5 Rise and replacing gates and grouting chambers on the Wigan flight. Chief Executive Richard Parry claims CRT is also starting the large-scale expansion of works needed to strengthen the resilience of our 200-year-old infrastructure to cope with climate change. But it's far from clear how the current shrunken maintenance programme even begins to meet that ambition. We shall see. What, no boats? We're here for you now more than ever, said the CRT banner attached to a wire fence. It went on, we're spending £45 million on repairs this winter so you can continue to use your local canal as a place to walk, run, cycle or watch the world go by. Now that was a picture that popped up on many boating pages on Facebook, often along with comments similar to those of boater and National Association of Boat Owners member Anne Huzzar, who asked, "Haven't you forgotten to mention us boaters? I know we're often forgotten, but please." For once, there was a swift reaction from CRT, who claimed that the banner was one of a set produced last year and that the others did mention boaters. An anonymous CRT person admitted that the banner, used in isolation as it was, meant boats were very much an omission. They went on,
"We apologise for this. It was certainly not our intention to make anyone feel this way, and we're sorry for any upset that this oversight has caused. We have since arranged for the removal of the banner and this should be taking place today."
Well, isn't that nice? To say rather silly. That's it for this week. We'll have numbers for you next week. See you then. Bye.
We need video and photos of all aspects of the waterways. Email files to peterunderwood2@gmail.com with your name and a brief description of it and where and when it was shot.